Hear my heart, my word falls into the river of love. Chapter 31, Prank Chapter. Chapter 31, Thank You. Jin Yan eyed Herschel unhappily, asking him with an unsightly complexion, "What science is this theory of yours based off of?" Herschel promptly answered, "There's no scientific basis. I'm speaking nonsense. How about we change spots?" Jin Yan said, "No need. Even if we change spots, the baby will still float to my side." Fortunately, she had brought extra clothes. Otherwise, she would have smelled like hot pot when she went to work later. That would be terrible. Thinking of this, Jin Yan opened her mouth to speak, only to be cut off by Herschel signaling the waiter. "A bottle of Sauvignon Blanc, Pesson Yongnan, please," Herschel ordered, glancing at Jin Yan from the corners of his eyes to see if she had any resistance. Seeing shock but not indignation, he picked up a pair of chopsticks and began dropping the ingredients in the pot. Watching Herschel silently for a moment, Jin Yan frowned slightly. She asked, "Wine?" Herschel didn't pause and continued to prepare the meal. The key to preparing wine with hot pot is not to concentrate on the meat, but on the sauce. Hot pot tends to be fairly mild in flavor, so the sauce adds to the taste. Normally, a white wine like Riesling is paired with Chinese food, but past experience has taught me that lighter wines with a nice fruity flavor, like a young Côte du Rhône or Biojolas, paired rounds out the more acidic sauces. I plan on serving this alongside a more savory sesame sauce, however, so the wild white, when strongly aged, is better. Oh. Jin Yan didn't know how to respond to the impromptu wine lesson. "Does it taste like Chardonnay? I've had that before. A chocolateless one, I think." Linton ordered a bar to go with the oysters that we went out to eat, celebrating my first award. "Chocolate?" Herschel set down the chopsticks and began adjusting temperature. A classic young white Burgundy. Chief Lin must know her wine pretty well. Chocolate goes particularly well with oysters. The young unoaked Chardonnay, brewed in a cool climate, complements light and delicate food perfectly. Jin Yan blinked. It was just wine. Coughing, she changed the topic. "Shall we be consuming alcohol when we have work later?" She glanced askance at the cream white bottle of liquor in the ice bucket. The waiter had definitely delivered it a moment ago, as he had not wanted to interrupt Herschel. Herschel started. Mentally cursing at himself, he stated, "We can take the day off to recover. My apologies. I had forgotten about further engagements later today." "Is it okay to just take a holiday so last minute?" "Since I am the director, making such last minute accommodations should be no problem." He glanced to the side and placed a wine glass in front of each of them. Looking at his guilty expression, Jin Yan suspiciously replied, "All right." Trailing off, she saw Herschel's eyes light up. A blink of an eye later, the light disappeared. "Right, I might quit 2 days from now." Herschel was slightly stunned. Hand grasping the bottle, he poured the wine into the glasses, his movements slightly unsteady. "I was wrong a moment ago. I was only speaking nonsense. You don't need to quit, okay?" Jin Yan laughed and said, "Chief only gave me a month vacation, and previously, so when and I had agreed I would leave after Christmas." Herschel slightly pursed his lips. He wasn't afraid that there would be one less employee at Fantasy Wardrobe because Jin Yan left. Instead, he was afraid that if she left, he would have less opportunities to interact with her. He pondered for a moment before saying to her, "Hui Hui is leaving for Sea City after Lunar New Year. How about you stay until then and then leave with her?" It's not like I can't do that. It was just that if it was like this, her new project might be started even later than intended. Herschel continued to argue, "A holiday bonus is also given during Lunar New Year. You also receive one." Jin Yan raised the brow slightly. "The benefits are that good? She's still a probationary employee." Herschel nodded. "She would, because he said she would." "Well, okay then. It's only a few more days anyway." Herschel's heart relaxed a little upon seeing her agree. He took a sip of his wine, smiled at her, then asked, "What else do you want to eat? I'll buy for you." "Oh, nothing for the time being. Ask again after we finish eating this." Herschel raised his chopsticks and picked up a few pieces. He didn't care what it was and just placed it into his bowl. Currently, he was thinking that time was running out. He had to develop a closer relationship with Jin Yan before she quit. "Oh, that's right. Are you free the day after tomorrow?" "The day after tomorrow?" Jin Yan thought for a moment. "January 1st? I think I have the early shift. Then, do you have time after you finish work? I want to take you somewhere. Jenya was slightly curious. Where? Herschel smiled at her, confidential for the time being. Jenya narrowed her eyes at him. Are you trying to plan something bad? Herschel laughed in spite of himself and replied, Absolutely not. Trust me. Jenya thought this over and agreed. Sure. The corners of Herschel's lips rose slightly, clearly a bit happy. Then, after you finish work, wait for me outside the department store. I'll give you a ride there. Okay. She agreed before seemingly recalling something. She asked Herschel, Oh, that's right. Tomorrow night is New Year's Eve. Are many brands going to sell Lucky Bags? Herschel said Lucky Bags will be sold after the department store opens up in the morning on January 1st, but many clients will be lining up outside all night. I know this, so will we be working overtime that night? You don't need to, but I might stay at the company all night. Jenya looked at him with sympathy. So tragic? Herschel chuckled. It's like this every year. I've all become used to it. Jenya wanted to say, you, as general manager, have no need to attend to everything personally. But, despite being on the verge of saying what was on her mind, she once again swallowed it back down. Herschel was sensitive about his position in her family. She was afraid that she might Kelsey say something that would make him feel sad. This sauteed beef with cayenne pepper is very delicious. You should try it too. Jenya picked up some of the beef with her chopsticks and placed it in Herschel's bowl. Herschel raised his eyes to look at her and smiled, saying, Thank you. No need. Jenya buried her head, secretly annoyed at herself in her heart. Unexpectedly, she had been a little careless and had become lost in his enchanting eyes. Digging into her meal, she took a sip of wine every few mouthfuls. As always, Herschel's tastes are excellent, though with how much she could normally eat in addition to the fact she loved hot pot. Maybe she shouldn't be drinking wine so steadily. With Herschel's burning gaze on her, however, this slipped her mind. Jenya murmured, struggling to open her eyes. Her limbs felt heavy, as if lethargy had claimed her being. Even her thoughts felt slow, her first reaction nonsensical. A cream-white ceiling, soft Egyptian cotton sheets, and a warm pillow that was moving. Pillow, stop moving. She patted beneath her. Pa, pa, pa. She blinked slowly. Her eyes drifted down, only to see an expanse of chiseled ivory skin. Her mind was still hazy, barely allowing her to register the thought, Platon, Platon, beating under her arms. Warmth seeped into her cheeks. She shifted her hips a little, only to feel a heavy arm wrap itself tightly around her waist, preventing her from moving. What? She tilted her head up and caught sight of a series of blooming red purple marks. Hickeys. Her breath quickened. No, this could not be. No. If she remembered correctly, she was the one to... She felt a slightly cool hand on her forehead, causing her eyelashes to flutter. She looked up from beneath her lashes, locking his darkened brown gaze with her own. Biting her lips slightly, she leaned upward, letting his hand trail against her cheek in a caress as she caught his lips with hers. She had never done this before, but she had dabbled with it in her art. Liquid courage, no matter how diluted the wine or the quantity of food she had consumed, ran through her veins and tore at the walls of ice she had built up long ago. The fiery heat and haze of intoxication battered at her barriers until, one by one, they fell. She grasped his hands, placed them on her hips as her hands rested behind his neck. She smelled the faint scent of rainwater and vanilla from the glossy black strands. Letting her gaze trail a bit higher, she froze. Her eyes couldn't tear its gaze away from a pair of pale lips, a bit pinker and plumper than usual. Fingers trailing up her arm before brushing against her cheek. A hot breath fanned back the few strands of hair framing her face as darkness shrouded her vision. All she could feel was slightly chapped lips caressing hers, and a smooth tongue wetting her lips before diving in, stealing her breath away. A tinge of chocolate nestled behind the fruity tang of strawberry-veiled oak. She broke free to take gaps of air, licking his lips for still. Mint? No. It was something that was purely Herschel, something flavor so enticing and sharp, yet light and refreshing. She was completely addicted to his taste. She dove right back into those swollen red lips. Jin Yan struggled in tight embrace, but all she managed to do was skim her fingers across skin sending electric shocks to her system as memories of warmth, heat, muscle began invading her senses. She wanted to push back, but her hands refused to listen. One slid upwards, entangling itself even deeper into silky black locks. The other tugged up a light blue cotton fabric, dragging it out from beneath the tight fit of black trousers. Her hand found pushes against hard muscle, the smoothness and sensuality of skin-to-skin contact igniting something inside her. She couldn't breathe. A heatedness descended upon her until all she could recognize was touch, warmth, wetness, heat. No. Touching such warmth was like a drug. She let his silken locks slip through her fingers, her hands tugging apart fabric until buttons either slipped free or fell to the floor with a clatter. Clack, clack. Her nails scraped along the defined lines of muscle lightly, her body pushing them both forward until their legs fell in a messy tangle. Soft cushioning let them continue their dance, her fingers pulling her loose floor blouse off and reviewing a silk camisole in the lightest shade of pink. Her long legs shifted until they were between his, a hardening bulge pressing against her stomach, spurring her further instead of sending her across the road in disgust. She pressed kisses down his jaw, the slight hint of stubble nearly making her giggle. When she reached his collarbone, she latched onto his force point and began suckling it, her mind running on instinct. Even if she had never done something like this before, some things were just obvious. The grunts and groans filling the air above her only reinforced this point. A slight nip here, a flash of teeth there. She was marking him as hers. No one else could touch him, and after she was done, no one would wonder who he belonged to. She tightly shut her eyes, waiting herself to wake up from this. Rip! Her camisole fluttered to the ground. The hand that tossed it backwards casually returned to slide between her back and the bed. Both hands slid across her shoulder blades, trailing down until they reached fabric and metal clasps. A slight tug later, she found herself arching back, her fingers digging into broad shoulders. The first thought that trickled to her mind was wet. The second was cold. The third never even made it as his tongue flicked a dusty rosebud while his fingers rolled the other back and forth. She didn't know what she was saying, but she did know that she had found herself trapped, legs clamped between pure muscle and body immobilized from sheer sensation. Oh God, she didn't know how, but one moment his mouth was all over her chest, and the next moment he had her stripped completely bare. He shifted down before dragging his teeth along the insides of her thigh. She had never thought that she would be so sensitive down there, never thought that her lips could sprout nonsensical litanies. She knew she was pleading. She was practically begging at this point in all honesty, but she didn't even know what she was asking for. Please, Hushel, please. She cheered, running back at gasps. The slightest of touches at her thick cord left her breathless. She glanced down her legs and immediately spotted the beginnings of a green-blue mottled bruising all over. She shifted from muted pain and glimpsed the flash of color. Tilting her head a little bit lower allowed her side of her chest, and she bit back a curse. What kind of beast attacked my chest? If she thought the collarbone of Hickey's on her shoulder was bad, her chest, she wanted to whimper. His fingers, one, curling inside her, exploring the folds and making her gasp, and her hands tug at his hair. Two, pushing in and sliding out, caressing her. She tugged even harder, only to feel a quick, sharp bite at her thigh. She craned her neck down, her eyes hazy and half-lidded. Her eyes glanced upwards meaningfully, and she released her grip to dig her hands into his shoulders. He resumed his exploration. Electricity, like nerves on fire. His name rested on her lips as her thoughts descended into simplicity. More. Oh God, she wanted more. She shut her eyes. This did not happen. It was all a dream. This. She felt herself shifting because the body she was resting on was shifting. Dread began creeping into her as she slowly cracked open her eyelids and looked up. Dark strands of hair, limp and mussed, fluttered against clear, pale skin. Black lashes fluttered slightly, his eyes moving behind his lids as he slowly awoke. Her gaze was caught by darkened browns that held such an intensity it sent her mind spiraling back to a moment of pure bliss, a moment where her mind had been lost and bereft of thought. The first thought that breached her mind against the mist, the clash of pain, pleasure, the fullness, was that Hershey was fucking huge. Fucking huge and going to tear her into two because she already felt the trickle of blood accompanying lightning flash sharp pain. She had read up on this topic before and came away feeling nauseated and repulsed. It looked dirty and painful, not. Her mind went blank when his voice filtered through her ears. Yan, relax. Her mind went blank. She whimpered. But automatically she tried to loosen her body, his pulse movements. A second passed, then another. Each passing second began to grate on her. She hung in balance, tilting back and forth between the feeling of fullness and warm, loving pain. His body seemed to mold itself around him. All she knew, however, was that she wanted him to move. Then, her world exploded as she stared up into a pair of darkened eyes. After snow, I hope everyone enjoyed this. Smile. Expressing thanks to readers. Happy April Fools. End of chapter 31. Prank chapter.